Okay. Good evening. Welcome to Grand Blanc Township Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, February 7th. If we could all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Robertson, would you call the roll?
I would be happy to, Mr. Supervisor. Trustee Hugo?
Here.
Trustee Fike?
Here.
Trustee White?
Here.
Treasurer Kilmer?
Here.
Myself, yes. And Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6 members present. Trustee Raritan is absent. A quorum.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda. Motion by Ms. Hugo, support by Mr. White.
Motion by Hugo, supported by White. Trustee Hugo?
Yes.
Trustee White?
Yes.
Trustee Fike?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6 votes in the affirmative. The motion is passed.
Thank you. And now we'll open the floor for any public comments. We have the public comment cards over there on the side if anybody wishes to make public comment. Just ask that you keep it to 3 minutes or less. Seeing no further public comment, I did speak with one attendee here. We had some concerns with parking on Old Cook Road and people using the pathway on Dort, and it's probably something we can address outside the meeting, but people parking in front of driveways and things like that. And we're glad they're using the pathway for running, what have you, but maybe directing them where to park might be something we can look at. With that, we'll move into our public hearing, and we have a public hearing this evening for the Embury Cook Road pathway for federal and state grant applications. And we have with us this evening Scott Haymeyer from Rowe Engineering. I think he has a few slides to show us. Good evening, Scott.
Good evening, Scott. Thank you. Yep, I've got we got a full agenda tonight, so I've got a short PowerPoint presentation.
Tell me when you have it plugged in, and I'm going to switch it over.
There it goes.
Got it?
Yep. Okay, good evening. So today I got a quick slideshow. We're going to go over the project details, projected costs, the funding mechanisms we're exploring, and then finally schedule. And then
Got it there for a moment.
That was mine.
did we lose it?
Was that the one?
Looks like we lost the.
It's there for a moment.
This one here? On the right one, I don't know.
It was there for a moment, Scott.
That was mine.
I have a jump drive to give you if you don't mind.
Sure.
Thanks, Jeff. Sorry about that. Oh, no worries. It's me. It's technology and me. Get on.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to try to move them around again just a second.
Yeah, try and move it around one more time.
Mine's going to come up now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, now it goes to that one.
He's on his way. Figure it out.
I wonder if it's his cord. Where is it? Sure, it's good that the IT guy's here tonight.
Yeah. We've been having to use our imaginations.
Yeah, that ever can use a flash drive? Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Way to go, Nate.
So we'll do a quick project overview, go over the costs, talk about the funding mechanisms we're looking at, go over the project schedule, and we'll take questions at the end if there are any from the public. So if you would, please hold your questions to the end. Appreciate it. So first slide here, we have the non-motorized capital improvement plan for the project. Project area we're looking at is on the capital improvement plan, and it is considered a priority project. So to get everybody's bearings, I don't know why the pointer's not working.
There you go.
So Genesis is right here, Baldwin Road. This green segment right here is Dort Highway. So we're picking up where we left off with Dort Highway, heading east on Cook Road, and then heading north on Embry Road and tying into this existing purple line, which is the existing trail on Grambling Road. Zoom in there a little bit better. I can't point when we're zoomed in, but so hopefully you can get your bearings there and figure out where we're at.
Yep.
Next slide, I gotta blow up the project area. It'll be a little easier to follow. So here's the project route again. North is up. This is Dort Highway, just the end of it. This is where the trail ends at Cook and the roundabout. So you'll see two lines currently headed east on Cook Road. We haven't nailed down which side of the road we're going to go on, so that's why there's two different colors. We've got to cross under 75, which is going to be the most challenging part of the project. We have to do some work to the underpass to get the trail through there. And then the trail continues north. We're going to stick to the west side. We're looking at getting some easements from these businesses along here, and then tying into Grand Blanc Road here. So in total, we're looking at 6,850 feet, about 1.3 miles of 10 feet wide shared use path. So that's adequate for walkers and bikers, similar to the Dort Trail. Oops, wrong way. This is in your packets. We have done a detailed cost analysis on the project, cost estimate. It's in your packets. I don't want to go through it in detail, but just want to point out here the total project cost that we're looking at is just over $2 million. A lot of that work is getting underneath 75. And so we're looking at two potential funding sources. The township's would like to submit a application to the Michigan Department of Transportation, Transportation Alternatives Program. So that's one funding source we're looking at. The second funding source is through the MDNR, and that's the Trust Fund Act. So the TAP applications, they take 3 times a year. It's a competitive program. I think they have about $20 to $25 million budget a year. They take applications, they score them, they rank them, and then they take projects that are in that fundable range. So the minimum match is 20% for the TAP, but to make our application a little stronger, we're looking at going 30%. And then the DNR funding, that program, that you can apply once a year, April 1st. The mask ask is $300,000. So not quite as much money involved, but still a nice chunk of change if we can get that. So the scenarios here we have laid out. So the top there is the project costs and how we get at the $2 million project cost. We're 1.7 construction, got geotech and design engineering, and then construction engineering, and that all works out to just over $2 million. So, if we were successful in getting the TAP application approved, the 70% match would be just over 1.1 million for the construction. Township construction match would be just over 500,000. Add in the engineering and the construction engineering, and the township would be responsible for 836,000. If we didn't get the TAP approved and we were just to get the DNR funding, that would be the max $300,000 to the project. Township would be, for the construction match, would be 1.4 million. And then get to the bottom here, it would be a total of 1.7 million. And then ideally, at the very bottom here, this would be the best scenario for us. If we were able to get both TAP funding and DNR funding, we get the 1.1, 70% match, 300,000, and then the township would be only responsible for 200,000 of the construction, then add in the engineering costs, and it's 515,000. Okay. So schedule, the TAP application, the next one that we can hit is the 22nd of this month. Once you submit your application, they have staff review it, they give you some input, you can revise it. And bottom line is, we know if we were going to get funded in July 19th of this year. And then the trust fund, like I mentioned, they accept applications April 1st. A little more, a few steps involved. They score them. They give you another chance to revise it, strengthen your application. We'd have preliminary scoring in December of 2023. Excuse me, that's the final scoring. And then once contracts are in place, agreements in place, funding should be available mid to late 2024. So if we move forward, if we're successful in these applications, we'd start working on the survey work. I don't want to go through each one of these line items, but we'd be looking at starting construction in the spring of 2024, and the winter through the spring of winter of 2023 through the spring of 2024. And really about all we could get done there is tree clearing and a little bit of this and that, so we'd really be doing the bulk of the construction in the summer of 2025. Oops, did that one. So that's it for the presentation. I'd like to take any questions. Everybody has any?
Mr. Fike?
Yeah. When you go through those businesses, do we have to give them money for that? And is that in here?
The easement acquisition?
Yeah. Bless you. Thank you.
We don't have cost for easement acquisition in there. Typically, what we do is the township assessor will do an appraisal. We have to legally offer them that fair market value appraisal. But what we'll do is we'll ask them to donate the property, as a benefit to the township. And quite often, people will do that. And these easements they're not big dollar items.
My other question was, you mentioned there's not a problem, but it's difficult under the expressway there. Go through that. Why is that?
Well, if you've ever been through there, the bridge, it has the concrete underneath the bridge that protects the abutment, and it comes all the way down to the road almost. So you have to cut that abutment back, you have to put in retaining walls, you have to ramp the path up, you have to put in barriers to keep people away from the traffic. It's not possible. It's done in Davison on, 15?
Irish Road.
Yeah, Irish Road, that's it. Yeah, Irish Road, that's a good example of where they've done that, if you're interested in seeing it.
That's a big overpass there too. It
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
Under
Yeah, that would be a lot.
69, I don't know what that cost, but it'd be a little bigger than this one. So are there any wetland along there that we'll have to deal with, or not really?
We will have it, when we get into design, we will have flagged. You don't want to spend that money right now until we know we're gonna move forward, so. The available resources we have, like GIS and the general wetland maps,
Okay,
we're not anticipating it.
good. And is there much right-of-way along Embry? There is some, right? I mean, that we're gonna be able to use.
Yeah, that's why I only have to get easements from 6 property owners. I think there's a total of 10 privately owned parcels, but it's kind of goofy. The right-of-way bounces in and out between 50 and 33, depending on where you're at.
Okay,
We got 50, we're good.
all right. Yes, Mr. Kilmer?
Yes. Is there a point, seems like we've got a whole lot of ifs here. I mean, is there a point in our process where basically we can decide whether it's going to work or not going to work? In other words, how much money we'll have to come up with eventually? Because it sounds like that's going to be flexible.
Yeah, it is, depending on which ones you get. There's a resolution that you're going to be asked to pass today if we move forward with it, with applying for the applications. And they don't commit you, I mean, you don't have to, say you get one and the other, you can always back out. You don't have to take the money. But back to that schedule I'm trying to get to. So the TAP funding, that'll be the bigger pot of money. That's the 1.2 we're trying to get. We'll have a tentative funding decision in July 19th, and we'll Dennis or I will appraise the board what's going on. The trust fund takes a little longer to find out. Be December this year before we find out if we're funded or not. But it's nice to get the bigger pot of money, figure that out first.
Right.
Those, where he's talking about those TAP funds from MDOT, we have run this project. We ran the Dort Highway project through and requested TAP funds. We weren't able to get them for the Dort Highway project. And at the time, they called us while they were meeting and reviewing our application. And they said, because of the connection was missing. Now, if we had we had sent it in as phase 1 was Dort Highway, this was phase 2 of this trail. They said if we would do phase 2 at the same time, then we would have scored and probably been able to get the money on, but we were nowhere near prepared to do the Embry Cook because it's not like they would have given us this much money. It made a lot more sense for us to come at it in 2 pieces like this. But it did score very, very well last time. I can't imagine that it's now it's clearly a connection from the Dort Highway Trail to the existing trails on Grand Blanc Road. I think we'll score very, very well on this. And said preliminarily, I think to Treasurer Kilmer's question, we're going to know in July whether this looks like it's moving forward, whether we have a tentative funding decision that, yeah, this looks great. That tells us that we're getting the bulk of it or we're getting a big portion of it. Then it makes more sense for it to be viable to move forward. We'll hear later on that MNRTF grant, the trust fund grant from the DNR. And if we combine those 2 pieces, now we know we have the funding. Yes, we're still going to have to come up with some, but we can look for other sources. The Grand Blanc Grid has committed to assist us in trying to find funds for it. So we can start putting those other pieces together once we get there. And again, it's a 2025 project. So even if we're committing it, we won't be putting our money out until 2025 regardless. It gives us that much time to look for additional funds and to budget it for it if we're going to move it forward.
Good. Any other questions or concerns with regard to this? It's a project we've been looking at for a few years now. When we first took on the Dort Highway project, we knew that this was something that we were going to want to do. And now we're at the point where it's the time to seek the funding and start getting the engineering going. We will be paving Cook Road, or the road commission will be paving Cook Road in '24. So that'll be good to have that part done. But will there be would, during the construction of this, probably wouldn't need to close down the road or what have you.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah. I know somebody had voiced some concerns with regard to along Embry, there's I know people used it as a kind of a passing lane on the right-hand side in front of the businesses. I believe it's probably basically, and what do you call it when you, an apron, basically for turning into the businesses. But when people are turning, let's say going south on Embry and turning into the mobile home park, I know a lot of people go on the right-hand side to pass them, and there was some concern that if we have the pathway right there, might be a little bit close, but,
Yeah, I think we're gonna be set back from the road quite a ways
okay.
down in that area.
Well, we'll have plenty of time to look at those things, but,
This whole area in here, this is all MDOT right away.
okay,
It's pretty flexible on where we can put the path.
okay,
We just have to get it permitted.
all right. Any other questions for Scott? Okay, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, we need to open it up for any public comments. Public hearing for the Embury Cook pathway for federal and state grant applications. Anybody have any questions or comments from the public? Okay, seeing no comments, we'll bring it back here to the board. And one thing, you know, we haven't done a whole lot with signage yet on the pathway, but we do have it planned. And we want to have something that looks uniform, and we'll be working on that as well. And see what we can do on directing people for parking as well. Okay, anything else we need to do on the public hearing, Mr. Levina? Mr. Laddie?
I think you're good.
Okay. We'll move on to approval of the consent agenda, if somebody would care to make a motion to approve that. Mr. Fike?
Motion by Fike,
Support by Kilmer.
support by Kilmer. Very good. Trustee Fike,
Yes.
Trustee White,
Yes.
Trustee Hugo,
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer,
Yes.
myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett,
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the, let's see here, strategic plan update with regard to township beautification. Mr. Lehman, did you want to mention anything on that, or you want me to?
Melissa Roberts would be happy to recap the most recent meeting that was held for beautification.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We just put together the grid based on the committee meeting that we had for beautification. Some of the different areas that we are targeting are key areas like expressway entrances, overpasses, intersections, roundabouts. So we'll identify those with the beautification committee. Seek companies to sponsor areas and different supplies, like supplies for the beautification. So I know we have a couple of organizations that would like to sponsor some areas, and whether it be financially or just cleanup in general, you know, like a volunteer day. So we'll seek those companies out. Contact businesses with Grand Blanc Township signs. So we have several Grand Blanc Township signs out there that aren't actually owned by Grand Blanc Township. So we need to get those signs cleaned up in a couple of different areas. So we'll be contacting them. Create a plan to maintain those areas. Contact our local gardening clubs and talk about, you know, perennials and that sort of thing. And then locate other funding sources, grants, millage funding, I should say current millage funding. And then recognition of outstanding beautification efforts of township private and public facilities and businesses. So when somebody does update their business, puts some dollars into it or puts a new coat of paint in it, you know, like a good example is the vet down the road. here. They put it looks like a whole new building. So just recognizing them, whether it be on the website, social media,
Absolutely.
and that's about where we're at with the committee. Anything else?
So, a few things. One is we had a very good committee meeting. I know that we are dividing and conquering a little bit. I know several of us are doing some research on different items. Actually, kind of related to this are the signs that are starting to go up.
Yeah.
The welcome to Grand Blanc signs, the smaller ones. I don't know, I think you sent me a picture today of
did.
Saginaw
Saw
and
one,
Maple, is it? Or
No, that one was on Holly Road coming into the township
okay, on Holly Road down by Baldwin
as you
somewhere.
cross the line, the county line.
All right. So those are starting to show up.
Yes, so we've seen quite a few of them today. So I imagine within the week, we'll have all of them up.
And the other signs you're talking about are like at Fenton and Hill Road.
And then Hill Road, we have two Grand Blanc Township signs, or Grand Blanc, welcome to Grand Blanc signs. And we have another one here at the point that is in disrepair and needs.
Right. So we have some thoughts on what we want to do with those.
Right.
And then we're also researching the plantings. We've had several, like you said, several groups that have come forward. I was at the Grand Blanc Chamber meeting last Friday and had another group come to me and say that they want to help. So a couple of churches and one of the credit unions and a few others. So it should gain some momentum, I think. Mr. Gilmer?
Comment on the sign at the point.
Yes.
The bank is we're looking into who owns it, because they said about 6 months ago, they did some repairs on it. They weren't sure then,
Okay.
but they're looking into it right now. We should have an answer in another week or so.
Okay. Good.
And I mean, it's not a big deal. There's not a whole lot of damage there,
Yeah.
regardless of who owns it, but
Well, we may want to do something with the new logo on it too. So we'll have to see what we can come up with. So it's
Absolutely.
exciting.
Is there anything else you want to see
I don't think so.
for the,
Anything else that we want to make sure I know Mr. Sears is getting some quotes on doing some street sweeping on a regular basis on the overpasses and roundabouts, just because those seem to collect a lot of stuff during,
right?
throughout the year. So I don't think there's anything else that I can think of.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on new business, item A, the board will consider a motion to approve the 2023 Genesee County Road Commission Township Road Improvement Plan and authorize the township supervisor to execute all related agreements. We have Mr. Sears with us, DPW Director. Good evening.
Good evening. So before you tonight, we have something that we go through every year. Superintendent Lehman and myself meet with the Genesee County Road Commission, and we decide what is the best use for our 50/50 allocation money. If you remember correctly, these are projects that are done on local roads that the Genesee County Road Commission puts in 50% of the project cost, and the township puts in 50% of the project cost. This year, our allocation is right around $300,000, I believe. And we have come up with approximately $145,000 worth of projects that'll come out of allocation funds. In your agenda packet is a list of them all. Two of the projects listed there are going to be paid through CDBG funds. That's Auker Drive and Genesee Road. So those projects the township will pay for, but then we will be paid back by Genesee County through a reimbursement. The other projects, Territorial Road is across from Warwick Hills. And the reason we're doing that, it's in a very, very poor state. It's a connection to Office Park Drive, which is also a local road. So since our Paiser ratings are becoming so good on our local roads, we're able to dive into some of these more complex roads that are kind of like a local and residential road mix. Because this one has a connection to Office Park Drive and has some commercial traffic, we're going to be able to use allocation funds there. So that's a 2-inch mill and resurface. Pollock Road, if you remember correctly, we paved part of Pollock Road a while ago with the help of Genesis Hospital. And now that the Dordt Highway extension's done, we can go ahead and take care of the rest of that wasn't completed previously. It's in pretty rough shape, so hopefully we'll be able to have a really nice product out of it. That's also a 2-inch mill and resurface. McWayne Road is kind of a little bit different of a one, because McWayne Road's a gravel road. What we're doing is on both the north and south end of McWayne at Baldwin and Cook, we're expanding the approaches on them, because they're really small right now, the paved approaches. So that'll help out in the wintertime with traffic being able to exit McWayne Road onto Baldwin and Cook, where it's a little bit more heavier traveled.
Mr. Fike?
Why don't we pave McWayne Road?
Because it's a local road, it's the road commission's responsibility. Normally, it would be something, if we could do through a special assessment district, the township could undertake that. But since it's a local road, more under the Genesee County Road Commission's jurisdiction, I guess it would be up to them to initiate that paving. To make it a special assessment district through the township would be problematic for the very few residents that actually live off McWayne Road. So we have had inquiries before with very limited support from the residents there.
You don't want it paved.
They don't want, no, they do not want it paved. Some do, because some don't like the dust.
Yeah, probably a couple $1 million.
It was very expensive to pave McWayne, because that's a very wide gravel road also. It's one of the larger ones we have in the township. Some people complain about the dust, but then we've increased the amount of chloride treatments we do there also. So, but most people want it to stay a gravel road, because it'll just attract more traffic to them. So they'd rather leave it that way. So we're expanding those approaches. They're going to mill off the top layer and then add on to them and make them larger. And then Russell Street, which is across the street, is kind of a main thoroughfare to the two elementary schools, Anderson and McGrath Elementary. That road's in decent shape, but it's pretty rocky with some potholes and stuff, so we're going to mill and resurface that also. So like I said, the total out-of-pocket in the end will be $145,000 to the township, and a little bit more to the road commission, because they will have some out-of-pocket expenses for Alker Drive and Genesee Road, so.
So, Mr. Sears, on McWayne, when we're doing the approaches, is that to make them wider or longer?
Longer.
So-
Longer, and maybe a tad wider also to help with drainage.
So how much longer? Like,
I don't recall how much he said. I can get that information for you, though.
I was just curious if, because I know on Cook Road and McWayne, it is quite a steep incline.
Yeah.
Coming up to Cook. And
Right.
I've seen where school buses, what have you, have a tough time.
And I believe that's one of their goals, is to make them longer. They can ease that slope a little bit, too.
And unrelated, are there quite a few subdivisions that are looking at petitions right now, or?
I do have quite a few out right now, actually. I've been working with the road commission a lot, trying to get the cost of the road projects down. And what I'm discovering is that we can do, where the road commission previously has always wanted us to do reconstructions consistently, which I would gladly love to see a reconstruction on every subdivision street so it lasts another 30 or 40 years. We're being able to agree on a hybrid between some resurfacing and some reconstruction where it's needed. So I'm getting some of the project costs down, which may help these residents sell some special assessment districts. This time of year, it's a little bit slower because the weather's bad and people don't necessarily want to pass petitions. But pretty soon here, though, the potholes will start popping up even more, and I'll be very busy with these projects.
This week, they're popping up with the weather, hitting the 50s.
Yeah.
And being below zero. We're starting to see the potholes again. Okay, any questions for Mr. Sears with regard to our road plan? Okay, and so,
So is the motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
yes, it is.
Well, then I will make that motion.
Okay, and supported by Ms. Hugo.
Supported by Hugo. Very good. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes. Trustee
Hugo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B, the board will consider a motion to approve the purchase of a pressure-reducing control valve and valve vault for Grand Blanc Enterprise Park for $81,155.70, and authorize the township superintendent to execute all related purchase orders and agreements. Mr. Sears?
So if you remember previously at our last board meeting, you approved the design of this new station that we're going to have to install at Grand Blanc Enterprise Park to kind of help us balance and stabilize pressures between the neighborhood and the commercial property in the two water districts essentially. What's before you tonight is to go ahead and purchase the components of this valve so that we can get them on order. With everything else in the water industry, we are experiencing long delays in ordering supplies. So we were able to work with this vendor to put together a project for us, and we can order that valve vault right now. And hopefully by the time Roe is done with the final design, getting all the survey and property information done and then putting it on paper for the contractor, we can have this and be able to install it and put it into service so that we're not sitting on a dead-end water main in Grand Blanc Enterprise Park for too long.
Any questions, concerns, Mr. Sears? Okay, making a motion, Mr. Fike,
Mr.
supported by Mr. White.
Okay, motion by Fike, supported by White. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White. Yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Item C, the board will consider a motion to approve the purchase of an HP Design Jet T2600DR large format printer plotter to replace our end-of-life HP Design Jet T2300 from CDWG in the amount of $10,300 and authorize the township superintendent to execute all related purchase orders and agreements. Mr. Lucevelt, good evening.
Good evening. So the GIS portion of the IT department, we have a large format printer. It's used for printing off blueprints and plans for the DPW and building and assessing uses them on occasion. Our current plotter is roughly 7 years old. It's showing its age and it's starting to have issues as we're scanning and electrifying a lot of the documents that we have. So we're looking to replace that. And there is right now, if we can get it in soon, before the end of March, a $650 rebate we can get from HP for turning in our existing one as well.
Okay.
This is, I'm sorry,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Kilmer.
for blueprints.
Anything really large format that we need to print, so whether it's blueprints, whether it's sewer mapping, whether it's, with all the development we have, we're
Satellite
things
images we
constantly.
print out, and it also does, our existing one as well has the ability to scan documents in as well, so
Oh, does it?
we're taking all of our old documents and scanning them in it's been an ongoing project for a few years, I think.
So then we store them electronically?
Yes.
Good.
Making the motion, Ms. Hugo? Okay. Ms. Hugo makes the motion,
Motion by Hugo,
supported by Mr. Fike.
supported by Fike.
Any questions or concerns?
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucevelt. Item D, the board will consider the creation of a public-private partnership between Grand Blanc Township and Tech Village developers to facilitate the design engineering for the water and sewer infrastructure and roadway. Mr. Lemata?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. What we wanted to do this evening is just to broach the subject with the board to talk about moving forward with the developers for the Tech Village project. They've purchased the property, they've closed on that. We were looking at the design engineering. Row Engineering, as the township's engineers, have put proposals together that really break it down between what would be a developer's cost and what would be a township cost. There is some economy of scale by us sharing some of that engineering when it comes to the initial design services for both water and sewer and the road. The water and sewer infrastructure is going to closely follow the road, and the road is pretty much prescribed on where it's going to go through there because there's a certain portion of delineated wetlands in there that we're aware of, and again, it's still got to be surveyed and flagged. Scott Hemeyer is here from Rowe, who can also answer additional questions. But they started to put this together and looked at them contracting, them being the developers, contracting an engineering service to do this work, while we're using our township engineers to do the work. Basically, they'll be engineering over each other for in the exact same area. It makes sense to combine those services. So what we did in one of the meetings with the developers is broach the subject of a public-private partnership wherein the township will act as the customer to contract with the township engineers to conduct the engineering, both for the water sewer and for the road projects. The developers will then give us a cash bond in the amount needed to pay for their portion of the engineering services. That way, there's no risk to the township. We've got the cash bond in advance, and then we can move forward with signing a contract with Rowe, allowing them to get started on getting this engineering out of the way. We can make the payments as the pay requests come due because we've got their cash bond. Our portion is about $207,000 on the design services. I think we're splitting it like 80-20 approximately on the flagging of $63,000 to $68,000. Obviously theirs is a much bigger portion. It's about $700,000 for what they're going to have to do. So we'll have that full amount in that cash bond. At the completion of the design engineering, we're ready to go into construction. The township will move forward again with bidding out, moving forward with our construction. The developers then can go their way and decide how they want to proceed with bidding out their construction for the road. Separate of us, we no longer control that project. That doesn't mean that somewhere farther down the road during this 8 to 10 years that they're developing Tech Village, that we wouldn't come up with another reason why we may want to form a public-private partnership if it makes sense for both of us, if we can both save some money moving forward. But this, in effect, gets the project kicked off and moving forward. So we're kind of looking forward to it. What we're asking for tonight is for the board to consider this. If it makes sense, a motion to go ahead and move forward to develop the agreement for the initial survey and design engineering services, and then the agreement will come back to you after it's been drawn up by legal and reviewed by their legal team, and come back to you for authorization approval to move forward. But we just want to make sure that you guys are supportive of that public-private partnership before we even start down this road.
So, Mr. Lehman, with regard to the engineering design, that's to design the complete road going through, right? Or is it a portion of it, or?
Yeah, and Scott, you can certainly help with this, but the proposal that they have here is to actually design the road. They're gonna, that survey will show where the wetlands are, and then they're gonna design where that road is gonna come through. The Tech Village developers have adopted the conceptual plan that we created back in 2018. We know that they're following that, following the zoning. They're going to build what we had in the conceptual plan. So we know the road needs to go in that area. When they're done, that they're ready to go, they can take that design engineering and they can move forward with, again, however they choose to move forward. Typically because, and they were trying to hire Rowe directly to work for them, but because Rowe's the township engineer, we just want to avoid any conflict of interest and have us as the customer ultimately controlling the project.
Okay.
Up until they get ready to construct, and like I said, what direction they want to go, they will have to build that road to county road commission standards, with the idea that when they're done building the road, they will then give it over to Genesee County. It will become a county-owned public street.
But the intention would be to design the complete road through there and the water and sewer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to explain a little more, all these things.
Here, come on up, Scott. That's all right. We've got people watching from home that want to see you.
And we need to be able to record you properly
Oh, geez.
so that I can do the minutes afterward.
Just to help explain, a lot of these things go hand in hand, so it's hard to just say we're going to design the sewer for the development. So we tried to split out what the developer should pay for and what the township would pay for the water and sewer. So a lot of things that the developer going to pay for, we're going to do a mass grading plan, right? Because you got to know where all these sites are going to go, so you know how high to set the road. So that'll be done. We're going to do capacity analysis on the water, on the sewer, so we know that we can support the development. We're going to do a wetland mitigation plan. It's a big animal. As Dennis says, some of these things just make sense and they go together.
Right.
So the site, when we're done, they'll be ready to, the developer's gonna do their own individual site plans for all the individual sites on the road. But they'll have the meat and potatoes there to get a great, head start on that, and it'll all be master planned and well thought out.
So essentially, we're putting the backbone together
Yeah.
with that road and the water and sewer. And
Yep.
then the parts of it will come together as each particular property owner puts together their plan.
Yep, we're gonna do a drainage plan too. We'll have all the drainage worked out, not just for the road, but also a rough concept for the sites too, so we make sure we have adequate space for all that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
yeah, it'll be it's a neat project. We're looking forward to it.
I think the Chesapeake Group, when they did the market analysis, said this is like $1 billion development, I believe. So
Yeah,
to spend a couple $100,000 on the engineering is well worth it if we're going to see that kind of development over time. Mr. Fike?
Water and sewer first and then the road?
no, well, we're gonna actually you'd have to. That's why we have to do the rough grade.
So the road first.
You'll have to do the rough grading for the road before the water and sewer go in at a minimum. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when they do the road, do you think they'll do the whole road, or it'll go like halfway and then eventually they'll finish the rest?
They've discussed both, right? I mean, it would be.
They have, one of the things, in order to get it into place, and right now they're talking with end users who are very interested in moving forward and locating in there. They've got people coming from both ends. So they themselves, the developers, have some plans ready to go for some condo units that are live-work units. There's commercial space underneath, live-work condos above. Going off of Baldwin to start that section, it actually fits very well because it goes right up against the preserve. So residential to residential in that first phase. But now they've got people that are asking, will you be coming in off of Saginaw right away? Because there's some interest in a couple of different projects over there. So I don't, whether they're gonna try to start both ends and meet in the middle because they've got the opportunity to go. And then you've got some end users who have been waiting patiently for a few years that wanna grab that I-75 frontage for relocation of their commercial business. So I think that as much as they kind of want to phase it in, and maybe they will be able to start, our original plan was that the residential units would probably be built in the first 4 years, that nearly 100% of the residential units would be built in the first 4 years, and the remainder would follow for the next 4 to 6 years after that. I think that's probably not too far off the mark, quite frankly, from what we had envisioned based on what I see. So they may have to put the road in, the first third of it in from Baldwin, and then simultaneously be doing the same thing off of Saginaw and match it up in the middle as they sell those other parcels.
Any other question? Yes, Clerk Robertson.
Through you, Mr. Supervisor, to Attorney Laddie, any concerns, qualms, or reservations about this approach?
No, I think both parties have demonstrated that they're interested in coordinating their efforts, and I don't see any problem with this. I know that Fahey Schultz will be drawing up the template or the agreement, and I think based on Dennis's memo, they have some experience in this area. So I'm confident that it's a good plan.
Okay. Another question, just procedurally. This item is listed in the agenda, but it's not written in the form of a motion or we're talking about the consideration of the creation of public-private partnership. I don't like doing motions on the fly.
There's a motion in your packet, and the motion reads, motion to authorize the superintendent to develop a private-public partnership agreement with the developers of Tech Village for initial survey and design engineering services.
Okay, I'm
Part
just,
of the agenda memo.
let's see, it's in the agenda memo?
Yep.
Okay. Well, then I stand corrected. Very good. Then is the motion in order, Mr. Supervisor?
It is.
Then I will make that motion.
Okay, support by Ms. Hugo.
Motion by
Any
Robertson,
discussion?
supported by
Questions?
Hugo.
Concerns?
Okay,
Okay, go ahead, Clerk Robertson.
very good, I will. Trustee Fike?
Yes.
Trustee White? Yes. Trustee Hugo?
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett?
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item E, the board will consider Resolution 23-6 to allow property owners to protest their property values to the Board of Review in writing. Mr. Lemon, we have Danielle Harrington here with us.
The Director of Assessing, Danielle Harrington, I asked her to be here this evening for a couple of reasons. One, I want to make sure she's getting plenty of face time with the board so that you guys begin to recognize her as the amazing asset that she is to everything we do here at Grand Blanc Township, and to give her the opportunity to explain why we do this, why this is important as a township.
Every time I say, hey, we need him to bring in more money, she says, we're going to start with my house.
That's what I tell them. So in March, there are 3 days that the public can come in and protest the property values of their homes that we have them assessed at for the 2023 tax year. This resolution just allows those that may not be able to attend the meeting in person, or prefer to put a letter in writing, submit their protest in writing to the Board of Review.
We always want to remember to tell everybody that only 17% of their property taxes actually stay in Grand Blanc Township. The rest goes everywhere else. So 17% goes to pay for police, fire, parks, elections, all of it. So, okay, any questions? Yes.
So we've never done that before.
There was one done, the last one was done in 2021, because we had to allow for the ability to do virtual meetings. This one we put in place until rescinded, so that way we don't have to do it every year. It's kind of pointless to do it every year, but it is a requirement, and the STC, the State Tax Commission, changes their requirements frequently, so.
So if somebody wants to protest, they go to our website and there's a form, or how do they do
They
that?
can submit a letter in writing, they can drop it off to us, they can email it to us, it just has to be in writing.
Mr. Lehman, I had his hand.
So why is it important that property owners have the ability to protest the valuations that the assessing department has put on their property?
Because it is their right as a taxpayer to protest the assessment of their property.
And when we go into a board of review and somebody says, man, my taxes are just too high, what kind of documentation or fact-based approach should they bring to the board of review so that they can get a good review of the parcel?
The best advice that we can give them is whatever documentation they feel may be applicable to why they feel they have their values too high. It could be comparable sales if they have a recent appraisals, and things of that nature, comparable sales in their neighborhood.
Yes, Clerk Robertson?
Isn't it also, this resolution and allowing this, supposed to also provide ease of which they can appeal at the local level so they can preserve their appeal rights to the tax tribunal? That's,
If we deny their appeal of value, they have a right to then file an appeal with the state tax.
so by making this easier for them, then it's easier for them to go take the next step. And that's oftentimes the case what occurs, is that right?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think you find it more often the case with commercial. The commercial businesses do have the right to appeal directly to the state, but we always want them to start here so that we can, have an educated conversation with them as well, so.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay. Any other thoughts or concerns?
Is a motion in order?
It is.
Then I will make that motion.
Okay, supported by Mr. Fike.
Supported by Mr. Fike. Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Harrington. Item F, the board will consider Resolution 23-4 supporting a TAP grant application for the Embury Cook Pathway Project. We just heard a little bit about that a few moments ago at our public hearing. Mr. Lehman, anything to add?
We have to do, you're going to do two resolutions back to back. The first one supports the TAP grant. Obviously, for the TAP grant application, the Genesee County Road Commission is the actual applicant. We provide supporting resolutions because we're not an Act 51 road agency. You have to be one to move it forward. So they, often on these, you'll see them acting much like we did with Baldwin Road or the Dordt Highway Pathway as the actual application agent, even though it's really our project that we're supporting from behind the scenes. This resolution you'll pass along to the next one, and those will also go to the county so that they will see those as they, and I don't remember what date they had, Jeff, if off the top of your head, the county board meeting. It's this month though, right? So it was important that we got our resolution there so that they have that to consider for their own meeting.
Okay. Someone care to make the motion? Okay, motion by Mr. Fike,
Motion by Fike,
supported by Mr. White.
supported by White. 8F. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White. Yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item G, the board will consider Resolution 23-5 supporting the application of a MDNRFTF grant for the Cook-Embry pathway. Mr. Lehman had just explained that as well.
Yeah, so these ones, we are actually the applicant. This application period is April 1st every year, so we have to have it in by April 1st. We're going to ask for $300,000 from the trust fund. I feel good about us asking for this money because we haven't been able to secure a trust fund grant in years. If you guys recall, it had to do with the cell tower located out at Bicentennial Park. We encumbered parkland, which automatically took points off every one of our applications and made us non-competitive. These are very competitive grants. You have to really get your I's dotted, your T's crossed to score well. We were able, thank you to the former director of Parks and Recreation, Linehan. He really worked diligently on this. Took him about 3 years to finally get approval from the state that they're no longer considering that we've encumbered that parkland. They've said it's mitigated, and we tried a lot of different ways, but just getting that behind us has really opened us up so that we no longer have to check that box that we have encumbered parkland. That's a big deal. I expect that we'll score very, very well on this grant application.
Okay. Thoughts, concerns? Someone care to make the motion? Mr. White,
Motion by White,
supported by Ms. Hugo.
supported by Hugo. Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White. Yes. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Item H, the board will consider a motion to approve the purchase of Axon Interview to update technology in the interview rooms for $85,267.80 and authorize the township superintendent to execute all related purchase orders and agreements. We have with us Chief Rennie. Good evening.
Yes, so just a little bit of a background. Whenever the police interview a suspect of a crime or an arrestee of a crime that's punishable by 20 years or more in prison, that interview shall be recorded, both visual and audio. So currently, we have 3 interview rooms over at the police department. These particular interviews, when they're 20 years or more in prison, are typically conducted by our detective bureau or a detective. So right now, the best practices is that there should be 2 video cameras within that room. We are equipped with those right now in each one of our rooms right now. However, in 2 of those rooms, only 1 camera is operable right now. So, and it's due to the technology. This is very old equipment that we have over there back from 2007. We're still functioning off DVR. So this here technology brings us up to 2023 standards, cloud coverage, covert cameras within there, updated audio hardware, and it also integrates with the video footage so we could send that video to the prosecutors along with our in-car camera and our body cameras. It's all as one system.
questions for Chief Rennie? They get used regularly, I take it,
Yes, frequently.
fortunately.
Yes.
Okay. And this ties in with our current camera system, as you said, which is up to date and digital,
Yes.
cloud-based, what have you.
Yes, sir. All Axon.
Yes, Mr. White?
I guess I may have some more specialized questions. Do we have, do you transcribe interviews for these 20 plus when you have serious cases?
So our detectives, they go back, review the video footage, and they do it themselves.
They just do it themselves? Okay,
Yes.
I wasn't sure if there was some sort of transcription software.
No, sir. They do it themselves. They put the headphones on and work diligently inside their cubicle listening to that particular interview. Yes.
And obviously, they use that for court and FOIA and everything else.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Hugo?
Make a motion.
Okay. Ms. Hugo makes the motion,
Motion by Hugo,
supported by,
supported by Fike.
yes.
Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Chief?
Thanks.
Okay, item I, the board will consider a motion to allow the superintendent to execute the MERS defined benefit employer-employee contribution rates per the negotiated collective bargaining agreements between Grand Blanc Township and the police unions. Mr. Lemata?
So this has to do with our recently negotiated collective bargaining agreements with all 3 police unions and their MERS defined benefit pension plan. As the board knows, we have ended the defined benefit pension plan for new hires. It still moves forward for those currently in the program. But what we did negotiate was a cap for the employees of 14, 13, and 11% respectively for 2023, 2024, and 2025. Those will have to be specifically delineated in that MERS agreement, so we need to move that forward. I'm authorized to sign, but I can't submit the paperwork without a board's motion in the affirmative. It's how MERS does checks and balances, so you know that I can't change the plan, or any other authorized signer for MERS can't change a plan unless it's accompanied with a copy of the board motion authorizing that ability to move forward.
Okay. Any concerns, questions for Mr. Lemata?
Is a motion in order, Mr.
It
Supervisor?
is.
Then I will make that motion.
Okay, motion by Clerk Robertson, supported by,
Trustee Fike?
okay.
I see him out of the corner of my eye. Okay, very good. Trustee Hugo.
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
Trustee Fike.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Treasurer Kilmer.
Yes.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. On to board reports. Anything to report from any of our board members? Let's do it that way. And yes,
Just one small item, if I may. Everyone knows that February, is a wonderful month here in Michigan, but it is even more so made wonderful by the fact that my wife's birthday happens to be today, and she happens to have joined us in the audience today. So if I would ask all of my colleagues and everyone in attendance and all those listening or watching online to wish my wife a very happy birthday.
happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
All right, very good. Thank you. That's all I have to report, Mr. Supervisor.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have anything?
Okay.
Mr. Laddie?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Lemata?
I got some good news yesterday. I got an email from the University of Michigan Dearborn, their E-Cities program. We first signed up with them back in 2019, and you provide information. Now you no longer provide information. They just go out there and mine the data themselves. They take a look to see how well you are prepared for entrepreneurship, especially with small business, and then you get rated. I think this year was a total of 182 municipalities that were rated either a 4-star or a 5-star community across the state of Michigan. I'm very happy to tell the board that Grand Blanc Township is a 5-star community for the first time since we've been participating with this.
Very, very good.
Yay, us.
That's really cool. They've got some more information coming. I do have a press release, but I haven't sent it out yet. I wanted to get their information. But I think that's really a big deal, you guys. So they recognize that we have put all the systems in place to be business friendly and to attract entrepreneurs.
That is awesome. That is great news. Anything else, Mr. Lehman, at this time?
No, and I will be asking the board to go into closed session or consider closed session if they would, for all the reasons that I listed on your agenda.
Okay, so I'll make that motion to that the board go into closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268 ACF. The board will consider employee performance evaluations, contract strategy, and a confidential employment application.
Okay.
Somebody second that motion? Mr.
Fike. Mr. Fike seconds. Okay, trustee Fike,
Yes.
trustee White,
Yes.
trustee Hugo,
Yes.
treasurer Kilmer,
Yes.
myself, yes, Supervisor Bennett.
Yes.
6-0, motion passes. We are entering into closed session at 8:07 PM.